And now, from Grid Square Echo Mike 48, this is 100 Watts and a Wire.
Well, hello, and welcome to 100 Watts and a Wire, episode 369. My name is Christian. My call sign's Kilo Zero, Sierra Tango Hotel, and welcome to it all up in the cut. We were just saying that I think Scotty said it best. It is hotter than Uncle Paul's roasted nuts factory right after a brand new batch, and I have to agree. We got a break. We got a break today, and maybe 94, and consider it a break in the weather. It was 103 or 104 yesterday. It's crazy, and you'll hear a little fan on in the back because, sorry, I mean, I'm a bit of a purist, but not if I'm hotter than Uncle Paul's roasted pickled nuts, sold exclusively at Uncle Paul's Pickled Nuts, and distributed at PastorJoe'sHouse.com. Good evening, Sidecar Steve, W7UDI. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm roasting here. We're not fully yet, but we're getting there. We're warming up. We're going to be in the triple digits this coming week and in the low 90s right now. So it's a warm one.
Let us know what's going on in the chat. Our friends are always invited to stop by at the live recording. We do this on Sundays at 6 o'clock Central Time, and we roll it out. Let us know what the temperature is where you are as we are recording this live. We're at 89 degrees. Scotty's here, KC3BXN. What's going on the Maryland side?
It's hot. You know, I'm not far from the nut factory across the ways there in New Jersey.
I know that's right.
Hit 99 today.
You could probably smell the nuts from here, yeah?
If the wind is blowing just right, sure.
It's delightful.
Quite an aroma.
The pickling.
I bet you smell all kinds of stuff from Jersey.
It's a pickling. Oh, shots fired. There we go. That was Sidecar Steve, friends, not your friend, Christian. So we're going to be talking a little bit. People are liking the tunes in the pre-show. I think we did 4 of them. 3 of them have come out of the Hit Factory out of Ellicott City. Scotty has put those together and lent them to the show, so we use those. They'll probably make a crossover. We ran a new one out this time that'll be used over on Hour 73, which is cool. My thanks to Scotty for banging that out. We're just going on, and I'm like, how about blues? We just do some blues, and then he gets to work on ripping out a little bit of blues, so that's cool. We also had a track by Mark's nephew, and so that was a brand new one, kind of chill. It's called Storm, and his name is kind of Kyber. Let's check this out. Hear that? Little drop comes in here. Got to get out here and get some fresh air because
it's super mellow, and you can kind of start cuddling your HT. And it's having a romantic evening with your HT.
I invited people from Hour 73 who may not be amateur radio operators to, if they wanted to, get a glimpse at amateur radio. So here we are. We're talking about wafting nut smell that are pickled. Pickled nuts are actually a thing. And Steve's talking about cuddling his HT while listening to tracks. So whatever, welcome to it. Amateur radio, you might as well get involved through us. I mean, we'll be the gateway to your radio.
Might as well do it. We're going to get into it. Let's get into it right.
Yeah, let's do it right. We're going to be talking about new radios, or new, Jesus. I was waiting for Sherry. Sherry was licking her fingers, eating something sticky over there. So at least she cleaned her fingers and then gave us the button. Oh, the HR department here will let people know when things get a little bit out of control or perception may be skewed. We're going to be talking about HTs a little bit tonight and getting into HF radios. Put a question out earlier this week about new hams. Steve, we see them all and we hear about them all the time. You don't always hear new technicians on HF, of course. The privileges are quite limited for a technician. That's why we kind of encourage you to kind of keep studying to get your general and find that mistress that I love so much is HF, where you can talk around the world. But we were talking about finding the new technicians and then kind of letting them in on, a good purchase for an HT. And there's some really interesting feedback that came across our social media outlets about, what to kind of suggest to new hams. And there's a lot involved, and we'll get into that tonight. But if you're here listening to the recording of this show, put down in the chat what you would suggest. If you didn't do it on the socials earlier this week, do it while you're here now. What do you recommend to new technicians for HT radios, but budget friendly? We got to think about budget friendly here. We're not trying to spend other people's money. That's, you could easily say, I get that $600 radio, but
Yeah, no problem.
that's off-putting a little
$600
bit.
is a lot of money for.
It's a lot of money. And they're out there like that too. Like, that's not even a joke. Like, there's $600 HTs out on the market. At least there were. I don't.
No, they still are. I couldn't believe the cost of some of these digital multi-band radios from the big three. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah. Was it all? I mean, I would imagine, Steve, and I say this out of respect because you've been in this for 40 years. Back in the 80s, say, or even the 90s, HTs, buying an HT, I know the technology's changed. It seems like they want to pack a lot into these newer ones. You can do some digital modes. What was it like, just like in the 80s and the 90s, in terms of HT and getting into the game then?
Oh, it was pretty expensive. I mean, the first HT I bought was a crystal controlled radio, and it was probably $139 just for a 6-channel. Yep, then to go buy crystals on top of that. But we're talking 1977. So factor in what's gone over the years, inflation and everything, and I don't know what that would come out to be today's dollars. It'd probably be $400 or something like that. But yeah, in the 80s, we're starting to get into synthesized radios. But when it came to HTs, they were pretty much still rock bound. I think the Tempo S1 came out. I think that was a handheld. That was one of the first synthesized ones. And they were limited to one band and mostly 2 meters. And it was a very limited product that was out there. And now we have a plethora of radios to choose from the super inexpensive to the expensive. In fact, as I was kind of researching today, looking at prices, I just went on the HRO website and I just started looking at HTs. And talk about $600 HTs. Yes, there is one. It's the IC52A, and it's $649. So $650.
What?
Yeah.
Damn.
I was blown away.
That's like a new cell phone. I mean, I don't want to open a bag of worms here, but I know the cell phones but an HT is pretty limited in terms of what it can do. It can do the digital stuff, but that's hefty. Okay, so that's why we're thinking about that. Go ahead, Steve.
And then there was I got my notes right in front of me. Then there was a Yaesu dual band. Oh no, that was only a Yaesu dual band, the FT5DR, which is 2 meters, 440, does fusion, and that is $459 at HRO. So I mean, they're there. And then the cheapest we come across is the infamous Bofang from Amazon for $26.99. So we can go from $27 all the way up to $650.
I know that people want to give you a hard time. My perception, my thing has always been radio is radio from, because my father was a CB guy. One of my early mentors, Elmers, they're called in our hobby here, came out of CB. A lot of folks came out of CB. So I don't really, I look at it strange. Radio is radio, whatever. But I knew that, all you want to hit on your podcast or you want to hit on your YouTube, make a video about Bofang. And next thing you know, it is like, and it's like this feeding frenzy. I think a lot of the prepper world got into these radios because you drop them in the river and you're like $25 out or whatever it may be. But I got to tell you an interesting story that can be heard on Hour 73, which is the podcast that's also now running, recorded it. Steve, you might know this, you might know the story, but in the back channels, and it's shared a little bit more on that show that's coming out this week, in fact, is that a Bofang radio saved Scotty's life. Saved his life. Okay, so that's all you really need to know is that it worked when it needed to work and saved a guy's life. But check out that podcast for the full skinny. And I know that he's upgraded, but Scotty, tell us a little bit about your experience getting an HT and when you were first licensed.
Oh, well, the ubiquitous UV5R was the very first 2 meter rig that I got, and actually ended up collecting quite a few of them. I have a few over here on the shelf. One is which you mentioned that we talked about on the hour 73. And to be honest, I have not upgraded my HTs beyond getting the 8-watt version of the Bofang. I toyed with getting I saw an Yaesu FT60 for a great price at Hamfest last year, and I should have pulled the trigger on it. I only wanted $50 for it, and that radio still sells for $200 plus new. But
it's a little cheaper right now.
is it?
It's $154.99.
Oh, dang! For FTC, yeah.
So it's reasonable.
That is reasonable. But yeah, I should have got that FT60 for $50 when I had the chance, but didn't really feel like I needed to.
One of our net controllers, Don, he says the Yaesu FT65R is under $100. Let's see.
$90.
Yeah, that's cool. TX
Wow.
Radio DX, Transmit Radio DX, I guess that is. Hello to you, sir. Is anyone else a little underwhelmed with the Anytone 878? I haven't tried that radio, so don't know. I've heard of that company, though. Big Ben says the FT5D is a great radio. He likes his a lot. And Kyle, he's saying here in our chat during the live show, start with a UV5R. Depending on your interest, you may not even end up using HTs very much. Anyway, I don't. If you do, get a better one later and have a decent backup. So there you go. We can go over to some of the social media posts, Steve. A little bit complicated in the answers because it's interesting. Old Craig says, unfortunately, you mentioned the truly budget-friendly HT, and the old farts think that they're better than all the new guys. Do nothing but gun you down as a hack. But many of those guys have them, and they just don't tell anyone. Have you ever seen a situation where the old farts actually have these radios, but they don't tell because...
Yeah, they won't say anything. Some of them will. Some don't care, but others, they're too proud, and God help them if they admit that they got a Bofang. And it is hypocritical when they start, ragging or bagging on somebody. It's like, oh, you're using a Bofang, and honestly, I've heard some of the Bofangs on the air, and they sound a whole heck of a lot better than some of the other big three radios.
That's interesting.
There's been some that have sounded really well. I know one guy he's an audio snob when it comes to 2-meter FM. I mean, super snob. And he was singing the praises of Bofangs, and it was like, holy smokes. It's, so they get ranged on because they're throwaway radio. I mean, to get a replacement battery costs as much as the radio, so if it fails, you toss it and get another one.
What's the problem? It's where it's made, and what the programming is. What they have they're hung up about.
Mm-hmm. The problem it's a Chinese radio, and it's but if you get like an FT65R, which is labeled as Yaesu, it's actually made in China, but the programming on it is a lot easier. I have found, and I've heard from many, many people, they say that the programming on the Bofangs are kind of confusing, and if you need to do it from the keypad, the consensus has been use the software, and they're usually pretty good about including an interface cable, and you can use the Chirp software to program it like a lot of other radios. So it's
Chirp all the way.
There are products out there to help get it programmed, but if you had to do it on the fly, from the keypad. It's a little different, and but like everything else, it's the learning curve.
I think a good starting point. You know what I mean? All I needed to hear was it saved a guy's life, and it made the trip to across the road to get help. And I think that's why Scotty had this radio. So, for one, it worked. Let's see. John says he started out with a Bofang, the UV5R, under $25. He says you can't beat that. Another James says, when I was a tech, I bought a Bofang. Once I found a club, I bought a used Kenwood. I later sold the Kenwood to a new tech and bought a TYT MD 2017. Let's see. Some people talking about getting into HF. We'll talk about that on this show as well. Let's see. The most budget friendly from John. He says yet quality HTs are the Yaesu FT65 and FT70. The new budget-friendly ZHF rigs, a little bit of HF there. We can come back to that a little bit later. So it's all, you know what? I guess we have to describe what's cheap and what's inexpensive, what's budget-friendly. I'd say $25 is certainly budget-friendly, but $100, I would think that's probably good. That's a pretty good price point, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to venture out to say anything under 150 is pretty budget friendly. But once you start getting at $300-$400, then that's takes a hit to the budget there.
And they're packing those expensive ones with just digital capability. I mean, is that the big difference? You get a little more?
Yeah, you get probably different. So looking at my list here. So yeah, the more expensive ones they have digital mode in it, so that runs the price up. Probably the software, the Ambi chip, the licensing fees. But when it came down to a lot of them, especially in the Yaesu, so you got the VX6. That one's a tri-bander. So that one is a 2 meter, 220 and 440, and that's 250. And so you got a tri-bander there, but that's the only one that's tri-band out of the list that I came up. Most of them I just kind of focused in on dual bands. ICOM has the T10, which right now is out of stock. That's another dual band, just FM, but that's 240 from ICOM. But it seems like, you got a Linko that has a VX50T, which is $100. But Yaesu seemed to have the biggest list of offerings for HTs, mainly dual bands, and two of them, out of the list that I compiled does fusion, and the cheapest one was the 70 DR. So that dual band, you can do fusion with it, and it's $175. So if you got a budget of $200, there you go. You can do analog and digital.
Mark says his TYT has his tri-band. It's $70. Ben says FT5, Wires X, C4FM, APRS, GPS on that. Spike says his first HT was the HTX 202, cost him $25. Bob, he is KE4QCY. He says not a popular view, but I would advise a new ham not to buy a cheap Chinese radio. Again, I think it's that price point. I mean, I don't know that I want a Japanese radio for $300 to $600, especially coming in. I think it's super off-putting for the new ham. I think you have to have that market to kind of get in to, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm kind of against not going for something cheap, especially for someone brand new. Nowadays, because you might come in. A lot of people come in and they have kind of expectations of what the hobby is going to be, and they get into the hobby and then they turn around, and if they dump a bunch of money into the hobby and it doesn't fulfill what they want to accomplish, now they got all this equipment they got to get rid of. A $25-$30 handheld radio, and that's pretty much, that's a couple of Starbucks coffees, and you go from there. So while I kind of agree, to stay away from the cheap stuff. On the other hand, I think it's a great way to find out whether the hobby is for you. And this hobby is not for everybody. And some people, are kind of either they're forced into it or badgered to get into the hobby, and they get their ticket, and then it's like they're not into it. So I kind of look at it. Here's an inexpensive way to try it before you buy it. And if you don't like it, then you just either give it away to someone else or take it down to the recycle center and call it good.
Throw it in the junk drawer and forget about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and that's kind of what got me to this point was, if I had to spend $200 to buy a radio to only to find out that I wasn't into it, no, that would have been a turnoff right out of the gate. Being that I could spend $25. I actually had my radio before I even thought about going to get my ticket, because of the first flood that we had in town. I was going to use the radios for the friends in town, regardless of having a ham license or not. And having that was part of the inspiration for me to go further with getting my license. So,
our friend RE, he is Kilo 1 AUS, Alpha United Sierra. For a budget HT, Bofang UV5 series are very popular and work fine. A lot of people complain about them being difficult to manually program, but once you learn the process, it really isn't that bad. So yeah, there's again the old adage. They would say, ask 5 or 10 hams with their opinion, and you're going to come up with different answers. 5 different
you're
answers.
You're going to get 50,000 different opinions.
Yeah, and that's okay. But let's talk about that a little bit in a minute. Here, we're going to take a little break here. I've got to tell you. Oh, yeah. This week in radio history. On July 20th, 1897, Steve and I were just wee lads. We used to play with something we call a sweet ball. Can't talk about it beyond that. The Wireless Telegraph and Signal Company is formed and founded in England in 1897 on July the 20th. Also on the 20th, kick it, Marconi dies. Maybe I should have some more solemn music for Marconi, his death. But sorry, he died in 1937 on July 20th. And on July 24th, 1939, the first experimental FM stations go on the air. And we know everything went cray-cray when FM hit. And the AMs were like, I don't know about this. It's kind of bad, isn't it? It's bad. They're going to wipe us out. Still, AM still around. Kick it. All right. There you go. Want to let you know that to check out the Hour 73 podcast. Show looks beyond the first 72 hours of preparation to explore self-reliance as a lifestyle. You can subscribe wherever you get podcasts and visit hour73.com. Building skills and rebuilding community. And if you act now, you'll hear Scotty's story about a Bofang that saved his life. Woo! Speaking of Scotty, there's some things going on, some events happening in ham radio. What's going on in the world?
Let me drag my document around so I can read it.
Get some more screens.
What do we got going on here? I got 2. We got some events. We got the Tennessee State Parks on the Air is happening next weekend, July 30th and 31st. So that's the State Parks on the Air, Tennessee. The Radio Society of Great Britain is having their Islands on the Air event. That's also happening the weekend of July 30th and the 31st. And then there's going to be a special event station, Whiskey 9 Zulu Lima, operating from July 20 through the 31st at the Experimental Aircraft Association Air Venture events. So that'll be cool. And it's a very popular experimental aircraft basically convention, and there's going to be a guy running a special event station there for the week. So that's happening, and that's in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
All right.
And so that's what we got happening next weekend.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it here as we do the show live to YouTube. And after we record the live podcast, we have coverage of the Sunday Evening Net, which happens every Sunday, 7 o'clock Central. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it. We'll get to it. Now let's get to the other stuff. This might be a little esoteric for an evening. I don't know. But Steve, we know, and I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but safe to say we have a lot of technicians every year. I don't know. We could probably look this number up of how many. But we have a hard time converting the technicians to generals. And this is a problem. Like, I think this is a real problem. And I wonder, I don't want to take shots in the dark or throw shade, as I do the air quote, as the kids would say. I don't know, old kids. I don't know what they say anymore. I'm so old, I don't even know. But anyway, is there a industry, and it's a bucket of worms, because I think the amateur radio business community is struggling right now. We're in a recession. All this is kind of happening around us. But I think in better days, is the price point of an HT radio by the big three or the big makers contributing to the problem that we can't convert?
No. I
Okay.
think it's just...
Wrong answer, Steve. Wrong answer. Scotty, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And I don't necessarily feel this way, but I'm wondering if that the entry point. Go ahead, Steve. Didn't mean to cut you off.
There's a number of things, and I'll just I just use my wife as example, and she has no interest of going beyond her technician class license. She likes FM, and that's it. She likes the clarity. She doesn't like when the signal gets weak and staticky, she gets frustrated. But when you're dealing with full quieting FM signal, she loves it. But when it comes to HF, no, doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And I just feel a lot of people, that's it. I've known guys that are super intelligent, can pass their general and extra class test easily. They just have no interest of expanding. They just like operating in the VHF, UHF world, and they just kind of stay there. They found their little niche, and they go there. And I think a lot of people, they get into the hobby and they kind of go, okay, this is cool. And they're happy there, and they just, either they don't get the exposure, we're not doing a good job of exposing them, or if they do go to general, then they stop there. They don't go beyond. They seem to be content. But it's tough to figure out why a technician doesn't want to go beyond general. I'm always encouraging people, okay, you just passed your general, keep on going, get one more test. You get your extra and you're done, and get that behind you. But a lot of people, they have preconceived notions that it's too hard, or they just have no interest. So it's a tough one.
Speaking of Hour 73, I think a lot of people who are interested in preparedness get a radio license as a tool in their preparation kit, and it's just like having a wrench of 5/8 or whatever it is, and it's just in there, and they don't necessarily take it too much further. They just have it there, and it's a part of their plan, I guess. Scotty, what do you think? I guess my initial question was the price point of HT radios and technicians getting into the game.
Yeah, I think at least in my experience with some folks that I know, didn't make the transition into the HF world by getting their general or going further with their extra, is just they haven't really been properly exposed to the HF capabilities. They haven't hung out at a guy's house that's got an HF rig and working the world on a wire hanging out their window. And I think I think a positive exposure to HF would convert at least some of the folks that I know to being a little bit more serious about advancing their licenses, so they can get into playing in that world. Because it's, I mean, that was the best thing I ever did, was go from tech to general, and hopefully in 2 weeks I'll be extra. Fingers crossed.
Oh, we didn't know you were studying. Can we get a camera in there where you take your test? No pressure.
And hopefully my brother will be technician
Oh, cool.
the same day. So that's the
Nice.
plan anyway.
Awesome.
And I wish I had been exposed to HF earlier than I was. And when I first was like, oh man, this is ham radio. This is what I always envisioned it would be, not just a walkie-talkie talking to folks in the neighborhood. And I think exposure to some of these techs, or lack of exposure, was keeping them back. They just don't know.
Oh, that's a good point. 1 point for you, Scotty. Sorry, Steve, not so fast. Big Ben was saying, I have a friend who wants nothing other than tech. All he's looking for is local comms. And I've talked about this on the show with Steve. It may precede your time with us, Scotty, with the local Aries team here. The head of the Aries team was a technician. And that's all he wanted to do. And he was the leader of this Aries team locally. And the Aries, for anybody who may be tuned in or listening to this later, it's Amateur Radio Emergency Service. It's a group that's sort of attached to our league. And they help people when they can and when they're asked to help. But you can join as one of my first entries. I mean, one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, was emergency communications. Now, that was it. I mean, my father exposed me, which is a great point by Scotty. He exposed me to CB radio and local communications and truckers going down the road and honk, honk. And, I was like, wow, he's like talking to a guy going through town. This is pretty cool. And, but the other part was this sort of emergency situation, which my father also, we talked about this on the other podcast a little bit. When a little girl got lost, my father went out with his CB friends in the town, and they were looking for this child who got lost. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I was 7 or 8 years old. I was thinking, this is the coolest thing. Like, this is really something. And now there's a whole different conversation about where emergency communications has gone in the hobby and in the service, but that's something for a later day. But I'd say, yeah, exposure, that's a good one. That's a good one there. Sorry. Let me move on. But I just wanted to make the point of the local Aries guys, the top dog, HT and technician license. Scotty, what are you laughing at my short-term memory loss? Are you trying to imply something? Easy, Sherry, easy. I don't know. It seemed a little low.
I mean,
I'm gonna have to
just
adjust.
people get comfortable into they get into their lane, and they don't want to deviate out of it. They that gentleman, he was a technician, didn't even want to hear about HF. I was like, oh no, we need to go to Aries. We got repeaters, we got this and that. And it's like, yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But if it's not there for some reason, then, you got other options. And, but no, they just don't want to get outside their lane.
All right. A Big Pap 408. He's KC2BK. If not for special events and rare DX chasing, I would not be on HF at all. Kyle says, I got general basically accidentally, and so glad I did. I love working HF way more than I thought I would. All right, question from Greg there. I'm just scrolling down. Let's see. Greg says, is it more important for tech class to upgrade or simply be active? Feel like if they're happy as a tech and are active, then it's still good for the hobby. Totally agree. That's totally fine.
Absolutely.
Totally fine. It's just an interesting number. I mean, it's like hundreds of thousands of technicians don't convert. It's not like 60. It's hundreds of thousands of people, and I don't have the number, but it was a high number of technicians that aren't turning that corner, and it's just a question of why. They all can't be just content, maybe. I don't know. What do I know? I don't know.
They just don't know.
They just don't know. I mean, you make your first HF content, and this could be a good time for us to transition here take a little break and all that. But continue, put your questions down. Oh, let me let you guys answer that question. Being content, Steve. That's good enough, right? Being content and active.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, they're active in the hobby and they're content. Who are we to come and say you need to upgrade? You need to upgrade. You need to get that general and extra class, or you're not a true ham, and that's not right. That's not right. I mean, you're a ham. You got your ticket. You're operating. You're enjoying the mode and the bands that give you the satisfaction. That, it's your hobby and you enjoy it your way.
Oh. Enjoying the band and the hobby, getting satisfaction. That's a little weird. That's a little weird. Getting satisfaction should not cause a flag in
what
HR.
What band are we talking about? What band are we talking
We're
about?
talking about backstage at Dizzy Gillespie show. Come on, Sherry. Jeez and rice.
No,
Say no
I'm just happy
Kenny
they're
G
active.
concert.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, be active. That's good. I guess that's the part. And that's a business thing, too. I think they're really trying to figure out how to get these technicians to get on in there because selfishly, the expense rises that when you get an HF. It doesn't have to, and we can talk about that. It doesn't have to get crazy, but your radios start to cost more. Waka. Waka waka. All right. Girl. Did you know, girl? I got that HF tuner hooked up to the fan. It's gonna be so fun tonight, girl. It's so hot. But the fan and that tuner, I like when you tune me up.
It's gonna get smelly.
It's like a taser, baby. Ooh.
Taser.
Sorry, Bioenno Power. If you're looking for a power solution, check out Bioenno Power, offering the best lithium phosphate batteries for your ham radios. Visit bioennopower.com. That's BIOENNO power.com. And some good folks over there. I use the Bioenno Power. People do ask me, I don't just take the money from any old willy-nilly thing. I like to use the products that sponsor and that sort of thing. But there you go. Scotty, what's going on? We got any Hamfest still going? It's so hot outside.
I was just glancing over at my Bioenno battery.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we do have some Ham Fest going on. July 30th, Greater Nashville and Middle Tennessee Ham Quest is happening.
Ooh, Ham Quest.
Ham Quest. July 30th also. The East Central Indiana Ham Fest. And also, again, on July 30th, the big Saturday. So, Columbia Valley Amateur Radio Club Ham Fest is happening as well. So there's some of the bigger ham fests happening around this weekend coming up.
All right. All right, I'm going to load up that fan, baby. You hit the button when I say we're ready to go. Okay, baby? Not before. Not before.
Yeah, leave Scotty alone. He's longingly looking at his Bioenno battery.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Oh, he's longing for. Oh, take it easy. I'm getting out of control here. Welcome to all the new people. If you're new and interested in amateur radio and you're new hanging out with us in the live sense, I'm sorry. This was your gateway to amateur radio. But say new in the chat. Put new in front of it. There's some really good people. We like to have a good time when we get together and hang out. It's been one of those crazy weeks, man. It's been crazy busy. I know the three of us have been crazy busy. I know when I don't see you around the Discord server and I can't type anything, we're too busy. We're too dang busy for it. Let's talk a little bit about the first HF radios. This is a whole different thing. Now, say you've made the jump from your technician license to your general. Very exciting time. I remember driving out after taking that test. Can you guys dig it? Do you remember those days? I remember pulling out, it was at a library, and I think a little town called Oakland, Missouri. In Missouri. It's down south of St. Louis. Long-ass ride home. But I was so happy when I pulled out. And the old boy, you can't see this as you're listening to the podcast. They're grading it, You're there. It's kind of like, remember back to your days in school. But at least they took the thing away and they'd grade it away from your face. They're right there. You're right. And there's only like 3 people taking the test. And he just happens to pull yours and he's looking at you and, hold on. Sorry, Sherry. I knew that. It was not, that didn't happen there. That didn't happen. Let me just go back, fix it. Not the Dizzy Gillespie show. Jeez. Anyway, they look at, he's grading and they give you a little glance up like, and back down to the marking. And then you see the big red X, like, because you know how many you can get wrong. But anyway, I remember getting, he looked up at me, kind of gave me this like nod and like I did it. And I felt like this great thing. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to change my call sign. I'm going to like, and I spent hours, endless hours looking for the perfect call sign. It's a whole different story. Talk about getting I know it's different, might have been different for you, Steve, because you've been in the game such a long time. But getting that ticket, as we call it, getting with that feeling going from first to the next level.
It was, for me, it was going from, when I got my general, I had to go down to the FCC office. So back in the day, we before the VEs came along, we had to go to the FCC office, and it was basically held on a Wednesday they did the amateur test. And so first you had to pass your code. And the first time I went, I didn't do so well. I didn't pass my code. But I took my general written, and that I was able to, because I already had my novice, I was able to get my technician class license. So I came out not totally disappointed, but somewhat disappointed. And then I had to wait to go back. And usually I have to do this during the summertime because I was still in high school, and my parents weren't going to say, oh, what do you mean? You're going to go down to the FCC office and miss a day of school? No, that's not going to happen. So usually I had to wait till the summertime to make the trek to the FCC office. And the one that I had to go to, we had this little 3-foot high nothing of a woman, and she would scare the bejeebies out of everybody. She was a tough one. And I watched guys much older than me just be destroyed, and she would just lay him out verbally, basically. And woo, yeah, I mean, it was she would have taken Ric Flair down hard.
Oh man,
she was
Sweet mother
she was
of
a tough
God,
old cookie.
what is the holdup?
So, but coming out of the FCC office and passing and was great. And then it was like, oh, can't use the ticket because we didn't have the rules and regulations we have now. I had to wait for 6 to 8 weeks before a piece of paper came in the mail that said, now you can use your privileges. So a lot has changed, but and then I eventually got my advanced, and I stayed there for many, many years, and then upgraded to extra here. I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or something like that.
Mark says that Sidecar cranked the Model T and headed into the big city.
No, I got on the horse. The horse and carriage. Let's go.
Let's go. Get up there, mule.
Let's go. The Model T. Jeez, you thought I wasn't that rich.
We should have had it now. Boy. Wish I had it now. Let's see. Spike has a question. Are there any hams participating in the EAA Air Venture in Oshkosh?
Well, they're holding a special event, so it must be.
At least
and
one
I
is.
know Ray Novak goes there every year because ICOM's real big in the aviation radio arena. And then Dan, he's lives not too far from there. So yeah, there's amateurs that are active with the Oshkosh event, and Scotty mentioned Spike. Listen, Scotty mentioned it earlier.
Good answer, Steve. That's 500 points for you. Hello to Great Lakes Reliance. Hello from Michigan. It's Rob. K8IBX. Now let's talk about that. We'll talk about yours, Scotty. When you got your general, what do you remember about that day?
I remember I was feeling I had been studying for a long time before I went. I would when I was doing recording sessions at the studio, if I was doing I did a lot of audio books for a spell there, and so that was perfect time while I was rolling on the voiceover artist to log into my Ham Test Online account and basically just studied for my general while I was at work.
Okay, well, he's
doing
very
the session.
honest.
So I felt very confident going into the tests. We had it done in Laurel, the VEs in Laurel, Maryland here. A little, I think it's a little Lions Club office that they have there, and yeah, I was excited, and I felt I did good, and I saw the VE after the test, and he's like, "Oh, you aced it, man, you aced it." And I was like, yes.
Sweet.
And I went home, and then I started shopping for HF rigs. I didn't have one yet.
Yeah, understood. Yep, perfect. Now, that's a perfect transition into, and we don't even have a lot of time here, but our friends who have gathered here in the chat, as they mingle and chat amongst themselves, let us know what your first HF radio was, maybe what your budget was. That's a good number. Tell us what your initial budget for an HF station was. Steve, what did you do once you got to the part where you could move into the magic land of HF? What was your plan?
Well, I got my novice. That's strictly all HF back then. So I had some surplus gear and a simple receiver that I scrounged up, and that's how I started. And then the high school I was attending, we assembled an HF station. A Heathkit Apache receiver someone donated to the club, and a Arc 5. So all you old timers, these were the radios that were used in primarily in World War II. They're just little radios, do about 20 watts or something like that.
I thought you got your radio and worked on Noah's Ark. Sorry, I blame Mark for this.
I was his radio operator. Didn't you remember?
I'm going to need 2 radios, Noah.
You need 2.
I need 2. You need 2 radios. I need a
Mark's
receiver.
2 of each. 2
Mark's
transmitters,
killing
2
it in the chat
receivers.
tonight.
Yeah, he took a nap. I heard about his nap in the Discord. If you want to join our Discord, you can check that out. But then you start to know the habits and the sleeping patterns of the. But now he's on fire. Sorry,
Yeah, he's-
Steve. It was too easy. It was too easy for me. Okay.
So awesome. But yeah, that was the first, and then I transitioned into the VHF UHF world, and kind of hung out there for a while, and then once I got a place of my own, then I dove into back into HF, and so one of the first HF radios I got used from a coworker. It was his brother's, and it was this little FT 707, little Yaesu, and that kind of started it from there. And then the 757, the 847, the 3000, the 1000, the 101D, you name it. It just, I went
Beautiful.
downhill from there.
Jesus for the win.
Great answer. Great answer. Yaesu guy.
Yeah.
Scotty, how about you? Your parlay into HF radios and the magic of working across the globe.
Well, I got my fresh General. I'm shopping for an HF. I wanted to buy something new because just because of the warranty, and my budget wasn't that great. I definitely was in the sub $1,000 range, and I narrowed it down to an ICOM 718 or a Yaesu FT 450. I ended up going with the Yaesu FT 450D. I got it for like $650 new, and I thought it'd be good because it had a built-in tuner, had some DSP for some noise reduction and contours and stuff. Where the 718 didn't have any of that happening, and so I pulled the trigger on the 450, and now I have still have the 450. I got what do I got over here? FT DX3000. I have a 1978 FT101E. I have a
Love that radio.
FT DX400 in the car, a 2890, a 30,
Yeah, he's got a lot.
3207.
Stay tuned
yeah,
for live coverage of this Sunday evening, 100 Watts and Wire Sunday Evening Net. We do that the top of the hour after we break away from the recording of the podcast. For me, man, it was, I think it was a 600, and it may have been 650. I got the Drake TR7 after a lot of hemming and hawing, and I needed to get a whole lot of input from people I respected and trusted, and Steve was in the pile of people. Dr. Bob Heil was consulting. Now, Bob, he was very much like, and Steve knows this, but you guys probably don't know this. He was like, if it's not 100%, don't buy it. And I was like, but I saw this article in QST, and it said it was like the Mercedes-Benz of its time there. Like, I was like, wow, I even still have the clipping of, like, this radio in its day was the bee's knees. It was like, you couldn't afford this radio back in 1978. And I met a man in Ohio who knew the Drake family. Mr. Drake had helped build playgrounds and all sorts of things, in his town. He was very good for I still wish they made this radio, you guys. The Drake TR7 and others are wonderful, and I paid about $650 and had so many great memories. It's still here. I don't picture a time where I'd be getting rid of it at all, but it's just one of those things, and I need to put it on the air a little bit more. I'm guilty. I'll romantically listen to the Drake net on it, and she drifts away, and people start sounding like Donald Duck. And I'm like, whoa, girlie, come on back to me now. Come on
Put it back in the lane.
But that was my thing, and then it was, I fell in love. My HT, I probably couldn't find my HT after a while. It was just like, I don't need that. How do I program it? I don't know. Don't need it. I'm okay. That kind of thing. It was just that jump for me was so significant into the high frequency work. It was great. Let's see, DJ, before we let you all go, he says he got the ICOM 718, still a good radio there, that one. Got it as a Christmas present. Bruce, he got the Kenwood TS940S for $450. Another one, Kenwood
Nice.
Back in the day. And even still, I haven't had my hands on anything they've made in the 21st century, but those Kenwood radios, boy, they still hold up, and they're just Kenwood. That's why I get frustrated. I wish they'd come back and be that, that big player that we all know that they could be if they committed to this market. Thought on Kenwoods before I move on down the line a little bit. I got a couple other people.
Oh, love them. I think they're great radios. When it comes to VHF, UHF mobile radios, I just go with Kenwoods. I've used them for years, and they've just rock solid and work great.
My
First,
oh, go ahead.
No, my first real 2-meter rig was Kenwood, the 281. I have 3 of those. I gave one to my brother, even though he's not legally supposed to use it yet, but he will be in a couple weeks.
He can listen. Sounds good. He can listen.
Yep.
He can do it. Yeah. Growing up, Kenwood was everywhere. It was car stereos. My cousins who had a little bit more, they were in the Army or whatever they were, they'd come back. Kenwood speakers, big speakers, and big, listen, everything was like, here's Judas Priest, man. Oh, like on a Kenwood. Kenwood's the best. So when I made that like entrance into amateur radio, Kenwood was on the top of the list. I'm like, whoa, I recognize that name. I didn't know Yaesu from a Gazoo or Icon from anything. I didn't know any of that stuff. But Kenwood, I was all over that, man. I was like, Kenwood for sure. Big Pat 408, he's KC2 BKM. He says he got the ICOM 7200. That was a radio, Steve. You probably remember, and there's some things we probably forget too. But I had one, harder than a diamond. I knew that wasn't going to pass. For the 7200. Yeah. 7200 looked like it was Army, man. It looked like, and everybody was like, wait.
And they had one down at Dayton one year when they put the camouflage. They had it all camoed out, and it was like, wow, that's
Man,
cool.
so cool. Rails on it.
I have to admit, the 7200 was my first love when I first started shopping, but it was out of my price range. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll never have the cool with the rack rails looking things, and it was cool.
Everyone told me, wait for the 7300. I was like, what do you mean wait? I don't want to wait. I don't wait. When I was going to upgrade, it took a lot of saving, and I was ready to pop on that 7200, man. And people were like, just wait. I'm like, you guys suck. I don't want to wait. And then it was like 7,300, and everybody went
The
nutty.
People's Radio.
Oh man, it went nutty. But yeah,
Exactly.
man, it was a great price, a great look. I knew it was a cool radio, and everybody was like, hold on a little bit more. A couple more before we head out of here. Rich says his first radio was the TS-120, and Elmer gave it to him when he was a novice. I love that.
Nice.
Nice.
I love that. It was given to him. Don says his first HF radio was a 7300. Budget was under $1,200, and he got a Yaesu FT891. Let's see, James, he got his first was an Alinco DX10, 10 meters, 25 watts, two 10-meter ham sticks, and a dipole. He was a new technician.
Nice.
TX Radio DX says my dad loaned me an FT897D, which I still use. I love that radio, and I consider that one the one that got away. I had bigger plans for an amplifier, and I had that radio that I just wasn't using, and sometimes you got to let them go, but that was a cool radio for sure.
Those are cool little radios. Yeah.
Let's see. Great Lakes Reliance says his first HF rig was a Yaesu. You guys will like that. The 450D. He still got it.
Look at that. Big Ben traded a pistol for an FTDX 1200. I hope it was the high point that you traded there, Ben.
I'd love to find a 950. So there you go. And Mark Kenwood TS 130S for $300 was his first. Big Ben trading a pistol. You know, you need what you need, so you got to do what you got to do. Yeah, and that's good. Spike got a new Kenwood 590. So there you go, guys. There's a good range of a cross section of getting into, as a technician, some things it looks like we figured out you can get in from about $25 up, depending on your budget. Really. And the same, I think, is true with HF. We didn't even talk about that ICOM radio that costs, what, more than a car? I mean, that was ridiculous with 51 something or whatever it was. Remember that one? So you can get in as cheaply as you can get in and go all the way up to scary, wow, you are a rich man type of stuff on HF.
You can truly go into 6-digit figures into this hobby if you choose. And there are people that have, but you can get in as cheap as $26.99.
Yep, and it might just save your life. Listen to that story on Hour 73. It'll come out this week. It is fascinating stuff, what a inexpensive radio can do, because radio is just cool. That's all I can say. Want to leave you with the thought of this. Let us know what you're struggling with. We're interested in trying to help you. It is about helping other people and taking care of others, especially new people that are coming in. Let us know what you're struggling with. We'd like to know that. The link to reach us is in the description. Drop us a line. Let us know if you're struggling with anything specific. Show ideas, all those sorts of topics are all welcome as well. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Steve, for hanging out with us tonight. We'll be making our transition over to the net, but we're saying so long to our podcast listening audience. Let's see if I can get us some music to play us out. Oh, that was mean, girl. You put a little butter on it. Shock the bejezo out of me, girl. Yeah, I got a lot of problems, but some of you already know this. Steve, thank you for coming tonight, hanging out, talking about your experiences along HF and HT. Scotty, thank you as well, sir.
Pleasure as always.
Do some research, 100wattsandawire.com. Get your 100-watt ID, and all the information of our socials are there. We're on the YouTube. We're live streaming our Sunday evening nets over there, so you're always welcome. And we'll say thank you for coming by here tonight, all the friends who came by in the chat. Stay tuned over most of these same stations for the 100 Watts and a Wire Sunday evening net. Take care, stay cool, drink a lot of water, and by all means, if you can, please try and stay above the noise. 7-3, guys. 7-3.
7-3, everyone.
7-3, guys. Happy night.
To join the 100 Watts and a Wire community, visit 100wattsandawire.com.